Hi, I'm Ed Yaw. At County College of Morris, we believe all citizens need to be informed about the important issues that affect their daily lives. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by County College of Morris, connecting learning and life. New Jersey Council of County Colleges. Wells Fargo. Health Republic Insurance of New Jersey. QualCare Inc., a local managed care company covering 750,000 New Jersey residents. The Fidelco Group. And by the Russell Berry Foundation.
This is One-on-One.
When you first heard that they were doing Charlie Rose and Gayle King, didn't you go, what?
People like laughing at others, so I don't mind if the other is me.
See, you go right into the character. That's what it is.
I'm bringing families together a half an hour each week. Man, I'm doing something special.
And so I do feel successful.
Steve Adubato here. I'm honored, thrilled. We were all thrilled here in public broadcasting to welcome our colleague and friend, a giant in the field, not just on the public television side, but in broadcasting overall. Mary Alice Williams is the anchor of NJTV News. Good to see you, my friend.
Nice to see you.
You having fun?
I am having a blast. You know, it's amazing. I had this career, a really interesting,
I've heard you had a career.
And then I had children and was able to construct a life where I was not quite as public, but was home when they got home from school and was really able to raise them. They're all seniors in college, all three of them right now, seniors in college. And I'm back doing television, daily news again, which is just a blast with the greatest team of some seasoned veterans and a bunch of really smart young people who are really working hard.
Let's make sure everyone knows when you can see our sister program, our partners and friends on NJTV News every night at 6, 7:30, 11 o'clock, and again early in the morning the next morning at
6:30?
That's right, it is. Before you came to the great side of public broadcasting, you had a bit of a career at CNN, right? I'm minimizing it. You were the first New York bureau chief for CNN in 1980. Explain what that means and why that was so significant.
I actually started in '79 before we went on the air. There was this small band of crazy people who had to design this thing. It sounds like nothing much now, but it was the first time we could get the whole world talking. When I was a little girl, I was 8, and it was my turn to do the dishes, Big Irish Family. And we had a little black and white TV set, and it turned to public television, and it was the Adolf Eichmann trial. It was the first time I'd even heard about the Holocaust. And I went screaming to my father, the psychiatrist, and said, "Why didn't you stop it?" He said, "We didn't know." I said, "But if you had, you would have stopped it." And he said, "That's right." And I said, "So if everybody knows bad things are going on, they can't happen." He said, "If you believe that, then that's what you need to do for your life." And that's what I did and what I've tried to do. And bringing the whole world together at CNN did make the world safer for a while, because at the time we were doing real news at CNN.
And the industry has changed dramatically.
Yes.
That was pre-MSNBC, pre-Fox News,
It was pre-everybody.
The internet, pre-everything. Everyone turned to CNN.
Yep.
That was it.
Yes, and it was an enormous responsibility to get it right as far as we could every minute, and change it right away if it changed or if we knew that we were wrong. But except for the Achille Lauro, a situation where kidnappers had taken a cruise ship and they dumped as it happens, my neighbor, Leon Klinghoffer, in a wheelchair off the side of the boat. That happened when there were no cameras present in the middle of the ocean. But everywhere else where cameras were present and the world could see what was going on, the situation, tensions were diffused. Obviously today, the terrorists have learned to use cameras for terror.
Clearly.
And that's...
But the other side of your career is so interesting, because you from CNN, you have an extraordinary career at NBC, right? Doing great things there, and our president, Neil Shapiro, at NBC as well. And did you meet him there then? Is that when you...
Yes, we never got to work together.
He was the boss there.
He was working in he was the executive producer of Dateline. And at a time when I was doing the morning show, I was doing Weekend Today, and so our paths really didn't cross, and right after I left, he became president. So we actually never got to work together.
He always knew your work, and so then you come over to the public broadcasting side. Describe the difference from your point of view, your perspective, Mary Alice, of the difference between what we do in public broadcasting and what you do in particular. I mean, we don't do news. We try to add perspective and bring interesting people on, and it's just different. We don't do news. You do it every night. The news on NJTV News versus the news that you could find other places in the New York, New Jersey market or other places across the country at 6 o'clock, whenever, 11. The biggest difference is?
I take you back to the thrilling days of 1776 at the Continental Congress when Benjamin Franklin, God love him, said, "New Jersey will be a mere apostrophe between New York and Philadelphia." Oh, yes, he did. And it has been. From a media perspective, South Jersey people think they're from Philly, and North Jersey people think they're New Yorkers, and there was virtually no coverage of New Jersey to speak of. Some, but not really stories, not stories that frame our lives. Journalism ultimately is telling people stories about themselves, about what frames their communities. It helps people become citizens. Covering a lot of fires and murders does not help people become good citizens. Covering school reform and the environment and the economy and what's going on in Atlantic City and how models in the Camden police force, which has cut all of its crime rates down by half or more, can work in Trenton and in Newark, showing that models that work here can work here. This helps us become better people, and it brings us together, and it gives them, we try to give them a Jersey attitude. We are a special state. Jersey girls. Let me tell you about Jersey girls. There are more women CEOs in New Jersey than in any other state in the Union. We have Queen Latifah and Meryl Streep and Bobby Brown, and oh my heaven, we could go on for days. I didn't want the housewives and Snooki, who's a very nice person, to define us.
The connection you feel to the audience, the personal connection, talk about that.
I think there are a lot of people who do what I do and who think of the 8 million people or the 13 million people who are watching and say, "Hi, everybody." You know, I always, when people say that to me, I look around my kitchen and think, who are they talking to? I am alone here. Most of the time, people watching television are alone in their kitchens or their bedrooms or their family rooms. And need to be, want to be, we want them to be part of the conversation. You know, you're as much a part of this conversation as Stephen and I are, right?
You really feel that way?
Yeah. Do you watch television? Of course you feel that way.
And I asked you, so is it a technique? And you said, no, it's not a technique, not a tool. You believe that.
Right.
You live it every day. You remind you remind yourself of that.
Right. I don't have to be reminded. You know, I turn on the set in the morning to find out what's going on in the world and switch around, and I know that I am the only person in the kitchen. My hours are so brutal that I get up and cook dinner at 6:30 in the morning. I do. So I'm in the kitchen by myself cooking dinner while everybody's getting up and out.
But you love this job.
I love it.
And the team?
The team's great. We have a couple really seasoned pros. Gideon Butler, who we got from Court TV, who's our senior producer, Philip Alongi, who is awesome executive producer. And we've got a lot of young people who are really smart. So yeah, I love it. And I love being part of them. It's exciting. It keeps you young. It's
a great product, and it's a great service to the state. And so in July of 2011, when the move was made to NJTV, and Neil Shapiro led that effort, a lot of people weren't sure what NJTV News would be, and the fact that it is what it is today and you are leading that effort makes all of us who are a small part of it at the time really proud.
Well, thank you for saying that. I am a small part of it as well. You know, I inherited a team that had already been put together and was a pretty well-oiled machine by the time I got there, so.
And again, people can catch it at 6, 7:30, 11 o'clock, and again, the next morning at 6:30 when you were up working out, I know.
Right.
Mary Alice Williams, who was the anchor of NJTV News. I want to thank you, partner.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Okay.
One-on-one, we'll be back right after this. Thank you, Mary Alice.
Welcome.
To see more one-on-one with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato PhD, and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We're now joined by Tricia and Kurt Baker, who are the co-founders of an organization, a very important organization called Attitudes in Reverse, or otherwise known as AIR. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having us today.
You're here for a very special reason. Your son, Kenny, at 19 years of age, on May 19th, 2009, after suffering from depression,
Yes.
committed suicide. And you and your family decided to start this organization because?
Well, essentially what happened was the day that Kenny passed, it was a public death, and our neighbors were being contacted by a local tabloid, and we're going to write a story. And this was within hours of his death. And we knew a story was going to be written that wasn't necessarily going to be positive. And we just happened to have a good friend of ours who was a reporter who essentially talked to the paper, and we were able to talk to them more directly and put out the real story that was actually going on with Kenny's illness, his diagnosis, what was going on, the fact that he had been suffering with anxiety and depression for over 3 years, and we'd done many different things to try to help him. And unfortunately, he was just a very severe case, and we did lose him, unfortunately, on May 19th, 2009.
And the organization was created to achieve what?
It was actually the brainchild of our daughter, Caitlin.
Caitlin was younger.
She was younger. Right. She's 3 years younger than Kenny. So at the age of 16, she met with a lot of discrimination due to her brother's illness and to the way he died.
She did?
She did, yes. There's so much misunderstanding about mental health issues and suicide. And she knew that we needed to change something, because she said to me, she goes, Mom, there's a lot of other young kids who are struggling and they're embarrassed to talk about it. They're afraid to ask for help. So her idea was AIR. She said mental illness is like air, and she came up with the whole concept that, you know, it's all around us, and just because you don't see it. And it was her idea to come up with a T-shirt contest, and that's how we started. We put it out there so that kids could design, you know, something creative. We pick a winner, and then we produce the shirts, and every volunteer gets a thank you T-shirt. But the other thing it allows us to do is everyone who wears a shirt, they're allowed to start conversations. People say, hey, I like your shirt. What does AIR mean? And one-on-one conversations about good mental health and suicide prevention are started. And we've had shirts go to England and Australia and Saudi Arabia. You know, one of our volunteers is sitting on a camel in the middle of a desert wearing an AIR shirt. So it's just about starting conversations.
It's interesting you say starting conversations. Is that a big part of this, that we're not talking about mental health?
It's a very big problem. In fact, we started off with we have an hour presentation that we do in this. We start off in the high schools, called it Coming Up for AIR.
Coming Up for AIR.
Coming Up for AIR.
By the way, go on the website, find out more information, get engaged, being part of the conversation. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, right. So we started off doing the presentation with high school students, and somebody suggested that we talk to middle school at one point, and we were a little
Isn't that too young?
Well, we had similar reaction to that, and what really woke us up to how important this was to have the conversation even younger was, during our presentation, we asked the question, how many here have known someone who has attempted, thought about, or completed suicide?
In middle school?
In middle school, we asked, all right, how many have known someone who's attempted, thought about, or completed suicide? And almost every hand went up in that room. And we, even being familiar with the subject matter, that really took us back. Because if parents could see how many of the students know people that are suffering, either themselves or their friends, I think that the parents would start to become much more engaged in what this issue is. Unfortunately, we as parents, we're guilty of the same thing. We think, well, maybe this is a phase, maybe this is just a passing, because we want to think that. And unfortunately, many more of our students are suffering than we realize, and they might need a little more help, and they might need a little more engagement. We need to talk a little more frankly with our kids and see how they're doing mentally, not just how they're doing in athletics, not just academics, but how is their mental health? How are they really feeling inside? Because oftentimes it's some of our more productive students. We hear this a lot from parents say, oh, my student's doing too well.
Excuse me for interrupting.
Sure, no problem.
Your son was an honor student in math.
Correct.
He was an athlete.
Correct.
So on the surface, someone might say, well, what's the problem?
Well, in fact, about a month before Kenny essentially became diagnosed and he had his
We're looking
break,
at Kenny right now.
Right. As soon as Tricia and I had a conversation. He just started his freshman year of high school, and we actually had a conversation that Kenny's doing great. He's adjusted well to high school. He's excelling in academics.
Right.
He is a star swimmer on the swim team. He's socially engaged. When we walk through the mall, he can associate with every group of students
That's what we all aspire to.
So we actually had that
for our kids.
Exactly. We were like, we essentially told each other, well, now we just need to kind of pay attention to Caitlin because she was younger.
She was a sophomore.
And we were like, we can kind of back off on Kenny, let him go, and if he needs us, we're there, obviously.
Well, what are you looking for then? I mean, what I'm struggling with is we have kids who are 11, 10, and what are we looking for?
There were signs, and looking back on his life, I remember the signs, but you don't put it together. I always say there's no book reading what to expect when raising a child with mental illness. He always showed signs of extreme anxiety when he was a child. He worried a lot about things. And then as he got into high school, what was happening was he was actually sleeping less and less and less. There were some nights he was sleeping 2 hours, and I would say to him, Kenny, how is your body not shutting down? Never imagining that his brain was starting to shut down. And lack of sleep is a trigger to bring on depression.
The advice you have right now, because you came here for a reason. I believe we saw you on one of our colleague networks, and I said, let's get them in. They have an important story to tell, but more importantly, they want action. And Caitlin deserves a tremendous amount of credit for this, for her role in this. I'm sure you're very proud of her,
We are.
Despite the horrible pain.
Yeah.
And I often wonder why you didn't pull the covers over your head and just say, the hell with it, I'm out.
This is very therapeutic for us because...
Therapeutic?
Absolutely, because when we started this, we said if we spend the rest of our lives saving one child, we feel that it's time well spent.
Is that why?
Absolutely, because if that child was our child and somebody else had done that, we would be eternally grateful for that. And so we take that perspective that if we are spending our time trying to help those others who may not realize it, because if you are dealing with a child with a mental health disorder, you either don't realize it, or if you're engaged, it can be all-consuming.
So right now, parents, advice to them watching right now.
Parents need to become much more engaged in education about understanding what the signs and symptoms of mental health disorders are, and they need to talk to the children more when they see something, like when their sleep patterns are changing, academics may be falling off, maybe social connection may be falling off, athletics. Anything that seems to be changing in their life, they need to communicate better with their children and maybe find out what's happening, as well as talk to, in other areas, the physicians are starting to do this more.
Sure.
They're starting to benchmark. They're starting to actually ask questions about how your mental health is.
Pediatricians.
Exactly. They're starting to do that, which they had not done. They didn't do that with our children.
Get pediatricians involved in mental health.
Right, exactly.
Because if you start talking to them younger, how are you feeling? It's just basic questions. It only takes a few minutes. And if those questions start getting answered differently, you start to say, well, your child's no longer quite the same. Maybe we need to find out a little bit more.
What about teachers?
Teachers need to be educated, yes, because they were teachers.
To what?
To understand what signs and symptoms are. You know, Kenny met with a lot of discrimination in his school.
He did.
He did, because there were teachers who didn't understand his illness. People called him lazy. You know, here was a kid who, as I said, was a math honor student, was a star swimmer. He swam 6 days a week, 3 hours a day until he had his breakdown. And then he was deemed lazy by some teachers.
And then he didn't go to high school.
He couldn't get himself to go to school because of the depression and the anxiety. And then people they make judgments about kids who just can't get themselves up. Buck up, deal with it.
But he had an illness.
Correct.
They don't
He had an
recognize
illness.
that.
If a kid had cancer,
Correct.
you wouldn't make fun of the kid.
Correct.
He had an illness.
Correct.
That he couldn't change just by, quote, bucking up.
Correct.
Right. And part of the issue that we run into is, of course, this is invisible, right?
Right.
If Kenny broke his leg, it was walking through the school, people would give him certain courtesies, give him a little bit of leeway, and so to speak. However, when there's a mental health disorder,
that's right.
We had one teacher comment, "Well, Kenny can't be sick. I saw him the other day, and he was laughing." And
Couldn't be sick, right?
Well, I think Robin Williams laughed quite a bit.
Yeah.
And we think that, as far as Kenny goes, our feeling is one of the things sometimes people do, especially if they have a good sense of humor, they will use laughter to create you know, if they make somebody else laugh, that's actually very therapeutic for them.
Yes.
And other comedians have said the same thing. So if you're making somebody laugh, doesn't that make you feel good? You kind of make them feel, it makes you feel good. And Kenny did that a lot.
Yeah, Kenny was very quick-witted. He loved to make his friends laugh. His friend told us that anytime you're going out with Kenny Baker, you're always guaranteed to have a good time.
Well, we can't even imagine the pain that you've experienced. But to say it's therapeutic for you, that's one thing. But the other part of what you're doing for so many others is just a tremendous public service. And I know, I'm confident through the work we're doing, public broadcasting, you've just shared your message with a lot of people. So to Tricia and Kurt and to your daughter, Caitlin, we thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We appreciate you allowing us to get the conversation started about good mental health.
It's the other way around. We're honored by having you here.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back right after this. Thank you very much.
To see more one-on-one with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato PhD and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We're joined by Dr. Michael Stifelman, urologic oncologist and robotic surgeon. Englewood Hospital and Medical Center. Good to see you, doctor.
Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Listen, I said we were going to talk about robotic surgery, and you said that's not even the right way to describe it. Say what you said it is.
You know, it's a great point. So robotics, what do you think about in robotics? You think about...
A robot.
Exactly. You think about manufacturing. You think about, we take a machine, we program it to do a task, and it does that task repetitively over and over again. And that's really not what robotic surgery is about. Robotic surgery is really what we call telemedicine, telesurgery. And telesurgery means that you're performing surgery for a remote location. Now, when we do it at Englewood Hospital, that remote location is literally 1 or 2 feet away from the patient. But in theory, you could do the surgery 1,000 or 2,000 miles away from the patient. And so what telesurgery means is I'm sitting at a console, I'm looking inside the patient through a camera that's placed in the patient. The instruments are inside the patient, and I'm controlling the camera, I'm controlling the instruments, I'm able to use 4 arms and controlling it all from that console.
4 arms?
Yes.
You have 2.
So that's one of the nice things about robotics, is that it allows you to go take a surgeon who has 2 arms and give him 4 arms to use. You give them basically superhuman visualization. When I'm
3D?
3D, 10x magnification, and complete immersion. You know, I once had an interview with Diane Sawyer in which she said it's, and I think she put it better than anyone else I've heard. It's as if we take our we basically take our body and put it inside of you. We put our eyes and our hands inside of you.
It's amazing.
It is incredible technology.
Are there certain procedures, certain patients that it works better with?
I think there is. I mean, I don't think this is something that every surgery has to be done robotically. I think there are many operations that we do really well laparoscopically, or even some require an open surgery. But when you need to get to a very hard to reach place in the body, and you need to do some really delicate,
for example,
techniques. I'll give you an example: kidney surgery. Kidneys are back in the body. They're surrounded by the rib. On the right side, they're surrounded by the liver. On the left side, they're surrounded by the spleen, the pancreas, and the colon, and they're deep inside the body. So traditionally, to get to that, we used to make a big incision. We used to spread the muscle open, put a lot of retractors in to get to it, and then to do the surgery, such as removing a piece of it. What robotics allows us to do is we put 4 holes in versus a big incision. We move that stuff out of the way, inside the body, and we can do very meticulous and very detailed surgery without making a big incision.
Now, you said before, because I was talking about, why don't we talk about the myths?
I think, back, when its first technology came out 15 years ago, back in, 1999, 2000, there was a lot of misconceptions. My doctor's not going to be there, he's not going to be doing the operation, he'll be getting a cappuccino, he'll come back. That's really not what it is. I think people realize now.
Hanging out at Starbucks for a while,
exactly.
Right? But not really.
Give me a call when it's done, I'll come back and take care of it. Not the case. I think people realize now that this is advanced computerized telesurgical technology. They realize that we're harnessing a lot of technology here to help patients do surgery, and they realize that this is really cutting edge.
Economics?
Great question. I think that's another myth. There's a myth that it has to be more expensive.
It's got to be more. I was thinking that's got to be more expensive.
It's got to be more expensive. But I think we got to look at the entire patient care. We all focus in on what's going on in the operating room. How much does it cost for the OR? How much is their time? And what we learn is that there's a lot more to healthcare than what happens in the operating room. So what we've been able to do at Englewood is really create efficiencies. We have dedicated teams, dedicated anesthesia, dedicated nursing, who go in that room day in and day out. So we're much more efficient when we're doing the surgery. So this concept that it takes more time to do it robotically is actually false. It takes actually less time now to do these surgeries robotically.
What's it done for you professionally?
It has really been transformative in many ways. It's allowed me to take care of patients in a way that I never thought I could do during training. To do things minimally invasively that I thought just could not be done, which I can do now. I think another thing that's done we don't really talk about is, as a surgeon, I'm sitting down. I am sitting down like I am right now in a chair, looking into a console. I'm fresh. I'm as fresh and comfortable as I was at 7 a.m. in the morning as I am at 5 p.m. in the morning, at 5 in the afternoon. And when I used to do these open, or when I used to do these laparoscopically, I'd stand 5, 7, 8, 9 hours a day, contort my body like Houdini to try to get to a space or to get into a position. And at the end of the day, I was tired. I was beat up. I had back pain. I didn't feel good. And from a surgical standpoint, this is going to allow me to extend my ability to help patients, I think, a lot longer than if I did it using traditional techniques.
You love it.
I'm passionate about it.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
It's funny. We've had a lot of conversations about the technological changes in medicine. This is one of the most human and understandable and accessible conversations we've had, and we appreciate Dr. Michael Stifelman from Englewood Hospital and Medical Center sharing your perspective. Thank you so much. You clearly love what you do, and you make a difference for your patients.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
Good stuff.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by County College of Morris, New Jersey Council of County Colleges, Wells Fargo, Health Republic Insurance of New Jersey, QualCare Inc., the Fidelco Group, and by the Russell Berry Foundation. Promotional support provided by the Star Ledger, powering NJ.com, and by Commerce Magazine. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
Not all County College of Morris students look like me.
Some look like me.
Or me.
Or me.
Or me.
We all come to CCM at different stages of life and for different reasons.
I plan to transfer to a university.
I'm training for a new career as a nurse. But we all know one thing.
CCM is where we want to be.
So check out the website.
Check out the website.
Check out the website.
And let CCM connect learning and your life.